you know who lives up there? Grace Randolph lives up there. This is the Jeremy Johns. Dear Mr. Jeremy Johns, the Bible is going to fight between us so that we cannot understand one another. But I have a living relationship with Jesus Christ. Now, you came on the scene like George Clooney in South Park with a promise. This show is going to be something worth watching. Go watch South Park. And I always wash my hands after I smoke because the nicotine has a bad effect on fingertips. Fingertip nerves are very special compared to other nerves. Let me do my hair too so that I look professional. I look a little bit less genius crazy, although the genius crazy is working for me. Maybe I can get some nicotine in my hair and it will be an anti-parasitic. So I'm a homeless wizard, Jeremy Johns, and I started following you 4 years ago because you, on my algorithm, came up and you said, oh, I'm going to do Star Wars 3, 4, and 5. Or you said, I'm going to do Star Wars 1, 2, and 3. And 4, 5, and 6. And then there was a promise that you would do more series like this, and you just retired into doing movie reviews and industry commentary. And there are not a lot of venues for collaborative thinking. But when I say collaborative thinking, I really mean there are not a lot of venues for alternative narratives. And fighting for my personal narrative in life is really important. And so, you know, I follow you because there's almost no joy in the movie review space. And the 4DX movie theater experience has put all of you, minus the joy, everything except the joy is in the dust. So since the entire movie review space has been left in the dust, except for the joy that it has, and it's not much joy because most of them are professional haters, commentaries, critics. Grace Randolph pretty much stands alone as the only joy, pretty much the only joy in the YouTube movie commentary space. So I just did a long breakdown of where not only the YouTube space, but also the social commentary, the echoing narrative that the plebes take up for themselves. You know, all of these things, it's very strange for me to watch people speak on a topic that if they really were into that topic, they would know that it is passé. You know, watching a guy with a camera record a skateboarder do a trick between 1975 and 1994, that's novel. That's cool. Wow, that's a career. But watching a guy with a camera record a skateboarder in 2022 is like, okay, you're in a protected class so that you can pretend like your hobbies make you money. It's no longer a novel thing. So watching you guys watching you guys barely pay rent by discussing films while the 4DX experience puts all of that in the less low priority timeline it's really important for me to be talking at this volume. You know what would happen if I went to the government and asked for all of the documents so that I could see where people are doing construction, so that I could position myself where there's no construction? You know what would happen if I did that? You know what would happen if I did that? If I said, hey, I'm paranoid and I'm inaccurate, my conclusions are not correct. These noisemakers are not following me around. All I need to do is find out where they are scheduled to work and not be there. Give me the dates and locations of where these guys are going to be so that I could be somewhere else. Do you know what would happen if I did that? Who cares? That's where. In some other magical dimension where another industry that I don't want to be a part of is unlocking before my eyes using handshakes and vetting processes that obviously I'm not willing to be a part of. The end, period. SSDD, can we go back to talking about the thing or not? Do I have to shout or no? How about I don't? So between the Snyderverse collapse and now, there have been so many opportunities for alternative takes on what could have been, and I guess all of you guys are saving that for your retirement plan or something? Is that your YouTube content retirement plan? For example, I was just discussing how because Matt Damon and Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa are so beefy and comic accurate and handsome, and they got a lot of special effects to do everything that their costumes aren't doing for them, except articulate Batman's face like Deadpool, and that's what they should have done for Ben Affleck's Batman. But because these characters are so beefy and handsome and muscular, when the audience looks at whoever they're fighting, no matter how big you make the bad guy, and whether it's Darkseid or a big special effects extravaganza, nobody's going to really believe that they're going to be defeated, because the audience is going to want to side. The audience is going to want to believe that these big, muscular, handsome, perfectly articulated, comic accurate superheroes are going to win. So the audience is setting themselves up for disappointment. And also because Jesse Eisenberg and Jared Leto are both kind of skinny, small villains, there's no amount of like extra armor or bad guy superheroes that are going to make the audience scared. But if you take Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, Arthur Fleck, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker character relates to the audience on a completely different wavelength. So if you take Joaquin Phoenix's Joker's skinniness and vulnerability and wimpiness, and you put it next to Jared Leto's pain as Mr. J, and you put it next to Jesse Eisenberg's anger, then it would augment how the audience perceives those characters' expressions of anger and suffering as Mr. J. Then all of a sudden the audience, it would change the dynamic of the film. So, you know, the audience discussion, what is called the water cooler talk of Joker 2 did not overlap with Beau is Afraid, although of course it would have. It did not overlap with Jared Leto's Mr. J character. Notice how I'm calling him Mr. J, not Joker. So I kind of expected at the end, before Joker Folie à Deux came out, I sort of expected that Arthur Fleck would make the wrong decisions over and over again, and that he would lose his reality and his physical superiority over his environment and his youth, and that he would wind up old and next to Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Now, they could not have a real Harley Quinn character, because Arthur Fleck, he's in a concrete box, and he's in a solitary confinement cell in a hyper-realistic David Fincher-esque Gotham, where in real life, when we're watching his movie, we will see him, he does not get sodomized with a police baton. He doesn't. He gets his hip broken with a police baton. But the audience that is so in love with shit that they're gonna love Clayface, that's how in love with shit the audience is, that the audience had to pay, I don't know how much it cost, I think it was like $120 million, so that they could hire an orchestra, so that everyone could make a song in an orchestra with an opera about Ant-Man going up Thanos' butt. That is how in love that everyone is with Poopy. But I know I'm a weirdo. You don't understand me. I'm making a video to a famous person. I'm making a video to a famous person who I shouldn't talk to, who's not a famous person, who's just barely getting by, who's just an industry slub, it's like everybody else. And he doesn't understand what to do with what I'm giving him. And he certainly is not morally obligated as a human to produce content that is competitive in an arena of capitalistic content. No, I don't know. What are we doing? So I expected Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and not expected because that's too much of a loser position. They couldn't make a real Joker movie because they couldn't make a real Harley Quinn because, look, Arthur Fleck is in a solitary confinement cell. He's in a regular world with no superpowers. There's one person who is in the social paradigm above him who's going to decide whether he gets to go outside or go to a low security prison where he can break out, or whether he gets electrocuted to death or gets the death penalty or whatever. One character in the hierarchy, that's his doctor. And in real life, there is no real life to that scenario. So what we are not going to get is the door opens, a muscled guy opens the door. There's a look to him that we kind of recognize, and we don't know what it is that we're seeing. We're like, why do we recognize this guy? And it's because he's a goon. He's a hired thug wearing a hired thug. He's wearing a hired thug, fake security guard at a mental hospital outfit. But we don't know this. We recognize it, but we don't know it. He opens the door, and in walks a petite woman, and on her name tag, it's Doctor, and behind her is another muscled guy, and on her name tag is Doctor, and here's the full name, okay? It's Doctor. When my parents were writing my birth certificate, they wrote that the Joker is God. That is her full name. And Arthur Fleck looks at this woman who is in charge of what the judge is going to say, and he says, "Excuse me, miss, but when your parents, with a pen, wrote your birth certificate, did they wrote the Joker is God as on your birth certificate?" And she goes, "No, silly. They named me Harley Quinzel. Are you mentally insane?" But instead of that, they had an insult to the audience. Now, I'm not going to describe any of the scenes from what was actually Folie à Deux. I'm not going to. Because there's an entire movie about it called Beau is Afraid. The whole movie Beau is Afraid is about how the audience doesn't understand the Joker movie. And there's one scene, and that's the only scene that I will mention in Beau is Afraid, where he gets locked out of his own apartment, and the audience, a bunch of scary, crazy persons, goes into apartment and they have a party in his apartment and they lock him out. That is how the audience, the masses who hate and isolate and who misanthrope as a verb, the individual weirdo, That's it. Now we are learning that Jason Todd is a composite character, that if you want to say the meanest thing that you could possibly say about him, that he has no right to life. We're learning that Robin means that Batman rescued one of these children, but he's still Robin. He's still out there living the life. He's still Robin. We never see Dick Grayson's adolescent life out in the streets of New York City, Gotham, running shit as a rich boy. We never see this. That Dick Grayson has his own Matches Malone persona, and his Matches persona is out there doing gangbusters. Literally, I guess. And that he has a friend who has no name, who we call now Jason Todd, and that this character, Jason Todd, becomes the next Robin, and that this next Robin gets literally his teeth bashed in by a crowbarred Joker, dies, gets resurrected by Ra's al Ghul, who the audience has been introduced to anyway. I don't know why that you want to gaslight me, like, excuse me, sir, what are you doing in our house? Now I gotta take a break. Now I gotta take a breather. And it does seem funny that Ben Affleck Batman would send his rock star ward to go samurai fight his 4 friends in Japan, like the 30 Seconds to Mars video, where they all find that they cannot die, just so that his one Jared Leto Robin can come back and be like, I'm a grown-up, I'm gonna do acrobatic stuff and fight in Gotham, and the Joker just hits him with a crowbar over and over again and says, none of your fighting matters because I was never planning on killing you in the first place. Yeah, you went to fucking feudal Japan, you fought your 3 bandmates, you discovered that you couldn't die, I wasn't even trying to kill you. So, you know, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker isn't even the main big bad. The main big bad is Mr. McYizzle Spitblick, played by, hey guys, I'm sorry. Can we define the walls of my solitary confinement cell? Because Jesse Eisenberg was obviously doing a vaudevillian like old-timey con man circus type of entertainer accent. Woo! So what do I have for Jared Leto? Jared Leto and Jesse Eisenberg become 3D graphics deformed 5D imps. But Joaquin Phoenix's Joker gets Jesse Eisenberg's 5D imp powers, and we get like Emperor Joker. I didn't even remember who's doing the Emperor Joker storyline now. It's not Emperor Joker, it's who's their big I think it might be like Parallax from the you know, DC would have it made in the shade if they could just do the, I don't want to call it the easy route because it ain't easy. Putting Whiplash and Crimson Dynamo together in the same character is not easy. But you know, all of these alternate movies, all these alternate movies could have been pitch videos that you made in accordance with your initial, you know, hey guys, this is the first time you're seeing me on YouTube. I did the work. I went in, I studied the scripts, I looked at what George Lucas was trying to do originally. Here, I'll make you a Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3 that's actually entertaining, that will lead you into 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then I'll do. 6, 7, and 8 after that.